Yo, peace was good. Welcome to another hip hop album review. This is part 100. The album that we'll be reviewing today is not an album that you would expect. It's not a classic album or anything like that. It's quite the opposite. It's not an album that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. Which is like one of the main reasons why I do these reviews, because I try to review albums that rarely get mentioned or that rarely gets reviewed. And this album that I'll be reviewing today is one of them. And the album today is, ladies and gentlemen, is BDI Thug by Buckshot Shorty, or Buckshot of Black Moon fame. Alright? Buckshot. For those who don't know who Buckshot Shorty is or Buckshot is, he's an MC from Brooklyn, New York. I think he's from Brownsville, Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. And like the rest are like from like Bushwick, like Evil D and Mr. Walt. I think they're from Bushwick, and he's from Brownsville. Then he like moved to Crown Heights or whatever. But anyways, he got his start back in the early '90s, back in '92, with with Mr. Walt and and Evil D, and they formed in 5 Feet Accelerator, and they formed Black Moon. And they came out with their first single they came out with was Who Got the Prize back in 1992, which it had a big buzz back in New York and stuff like that. And then because of that buzz, they started working on that first album, and the album became Enter the Stage. Classic album. I have to do a review on that one day. Not sure when, but I will. Don't worry. Definitely considered like their best album. Like a lot of people love that album. It's definitely in everybody's top 10 or top 20 albums of all time. I believe that joint is on my top 20 albums of all time. I gotta check again. And then right after that album came out, I think like a year later, back in '94, Black Moon actually broke up. I think they had like a lot of internal turmoil within the group, and they actually left Nervous Records, because that was the record label they were under, Nervous Records. This is before they had Duck Down Records, and because they left Nervous Records, excuse me, out of spite, I mentioned this years ago, but Nervous Records had released their a compilation album called Digging in the Vaults, and that's a compilation of songs that were like more like remixes, B-sides, songs that were made during like the Enter the Stage era, stuff that they recorded back in like '92 to like '94, '95, pretty much non-album cuts, like B-sides and stuff like that. And Black Moon didn't approve of it, and so because of that, like I said, it was released under Nervous Records. It wasn't under Duck Down Records, and that was released back in '96. And if you go to the Duck Down website, you won't see that album there, because like I said, the album would not be they didn't release it, like they released it without their permission, and that album was long out of print. I do have it in my collection. I didn't know about that until years later, but it's good to have in the collection and stuff like that. And a lot of other artists, they release various projects, like Smith and Wesson had released Dust Shining. Then Helter Skelter came out with the Nocturnal album. Then OGC, Original Gun Clappers, came out with what's that album? The Storm, which I do have in my collection. I have to do a review on those albums that I just mentioned. And then in 1997, the whole group, Camp Clik, was considered Black Moon, Original Gun Clappers, Helter Skelter, Smith and Wesson. Countless others have released an album called For the People, which I do have in my collection. The album didn't really get a lot of good praise because of the production. It's just saying like the beats were a little bit too smooth out, too laid back for them, because they're known for using like dark, gritty beats. And you didn't really get that with that album, and that album didn't really get a lot of good praise. 1 second. My bad. Like I said before, the album didn't really get a lot of good plays. So you know that, and then at that time, like, you know, that whole Camp Clik, like their fame. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, like around 96, like Buckshot and Smith & Wesson were recording an album with Tupac, and it was supposed to come out with an album called One Nation, but that never came to fruition because obviously, you know, you guys know that Tupac died. Rest in peace, by the way. Yeah, he died because, you know, obviously he got shot and shit in Las Vegas, so the album never came out. But there's songs like on YouTube, like you can find like that songs that they made together, but they're not in the best quality. So I don't know if they've actually finished the album or they finished it, but you know, this, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about that, but you know, Tupac is known for recording stuff very quickly. So, you know, it is possible that they came out with the album, that they finished the album. Who knows when the album will come out? You know what I'm saying? Who knows? I would like to hear that shit. But anyways, getting back to the Camp Clik, like the Camp Clik as a whole, their popularity started going downhill. Like, you know, they weren't as popular as they were back in the early to mid 90s, and you know, you could tell, just like I said, that album kind of like fucked their whole popularity down. So excuse me. So after that, in 1998, they were pretty quiet. You know, Helter Skelter came out with they came out with Magnum Force, which I do have, and I believe Original Gun Clubs, they came out with Empire Strikes Back in '99, and in 1999, in early 1999, Black Moon came out with his second album, Warzone, which I do have in my collection, and I'll have to do a review on that album as well, so stay tuned for that. They came out with that album, had a good couple praises, you know, people liked it. You know, people like to compare, you know how people are, people like to compare certain albums with their first album. It's not gonna happen, you're just not gonna get that, you know what I mean? So they came out with they came out with Warzone. You know, wasn't as popular as Enter the Stage, but it did get some good acclaim and stuff like that. Then months later in the same year, Buckshot came out with this album, BDI Thug. Alright? This is what the album looks like. Pretty dope. As you can see, like, Buckshot shirtless. See him, like, you know, just spitting and shit like that. You know, see, like, the animated spit. Pretty dope cover. You see he's rocking Echo, because he had a sponsor. They had a sponsorship with Echo. I don't know if they still do, but back in the day they did, you know. So I thought that was pretty cool. See what the album looks like. Oh shit. As you can see, you see like a time card, like a punch card, like at work and shit like that. Pretty dope. As you can see, you see Echo.com, because like I said, he had a sponsorship for Echo. See what the album looks like. See like the, you know, like where you can order your shirts from and stuff like that. I used to love seeing these because, like, you know, you always, like, it would always get your hopes up to see what albums would come out at the time. Sometimes they would come out, sometimes they wouldn't even come out, so it's pretty funny. I thought that's pretty cool. Like it says Black Moon, Warzone came out. Like I said, this album came out months after OGC Empire Strikes Back came out. Duck Down Records presents the album. I do have that. The Cocoa Brothers EP, I don't think that ever came out, but it had came out with Rude Awakening a year earlier. Camp Clik Greatest Hits, Basic Training, that came out. The Fab Five, the Simply Fabulous, that never came out because by that time they broke up as a group, because it was Helter Skelter and Original Gun Clappers. They came out with one single called Blah. They had a video for it. I thought it was dope. Sean Price, he actually said that they started recording the album around that time in '95, but it didn't come out because I guess they felt like it was whack, like the album was coming out whack, so they just scrapped the album. I don't know, I thought it would have been dope. Who knows? With them five together, it would have been dope. The Representatives, Angels of Death, that came out. That one was long out of print, so I can't even. I'm trying to get my hands on that shit. Helter Skelter, the new album coming soon. You know, that album didn't come out until like 2008, so The Crow Hill project, that never came out. So, alright. There's 14 tracks. You know how I get down. I'm gonna tell you some of the producers on the album, the special features and all that stuff. Alright. There's 14 tracks. And by the way, this is the original copy. This is the OG pressing. This is not the 2003 pressing that has like 3 extra songs and stuff like that. So cause like I said, I bought this album like back in the day, like back in like 2003, 2004. So anyways, producers on the album: Boogie Brown, Lord Jamar of Brand Nubian. Shout out to Lord Jamar. DJ Action, who's special as DJ and producer. Shout out to him. Boogie Brown again, like I said. Master Beats. Just Blaze, yes, the same Just Blaze. Rockefeller Just Blaze. Boogie Brown again. BD and Boogie Brown. Baby Paul, shout out to Baby Paul. He was at one point part of Beatnuts, because Beatnuts wasn't all just like it wasn't all just Mr. Wall and Evil D. It was actually a couple other people. It was Rich Black, shout out to Rich Black, who actually did work for Fist Bundy. To me, Rich Black kind of gave Fist Bundy their sound, in my opinion. Very underrated producer, Rich Black, and he also worked with Pitch Black, Chocolate Ty, and Baby Paul. So it was actually 5 people. Baby Paul, shout out to him. Baby Paul again. Chris Ward. I think it's Chris Ward, but it was like a misspelling. And yeah, it is. And Chris Ward again. Alright. You know how I get down. I'm gonna break through some of the tracks. Alright. Track 1 is the intro. It's just a beat. It's just like instrumental and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Track 2, Follow with Pride. Produced by Boogie Brown. That song was okay. I feel like the beat could have been a little bit better. It's nothing to it. It's just another it's just a braggadocio track. And the Follow with Pride, this is the original version. It's not the remix version that you guys know of. He had a video for that back in '97. This is the OG. This is the original version that came out. The album version. This is not the remix version. I wish he would have put the remix version, but I don't think it would have fit the album. So he just made the original version and then just put it on this album. The beat was okay. It was a little bit too basic for my taste. Like the beat just consists like a violin sample and like a bass line. It just didn't really. I don't know. It was too basic with Buckshot. I think it could have been a little bit better. Track 3, ladies and gentlemen, fucking love that track. I love the beat for it. Definitely fits Buckshot style. That's produced by Lord Jamar. It definitely has like a real dark vibe to it, because around that time, like the late 90s, Lord Jamar had like a really dark sound as far as production, and I kind of wish he would go back to that sound. Fucking love it. Definitely reminiscent. It definitely sounded like something that would have been on Warzone. That could have been. It could have been on the Warzone album. You know what I mean? I could have definitely pictured that being on the album. Track 4, Being My Bitches, my bitches and my niggas. That song was okay. It wasn't that good. It was alright. The beat was like, it had like, I like the beat, but it's just like, I don't know. What I didn't like the artist that was Hardy Hearts of Crow Hill. No, Harley Hearts. Yeah, I don't know. She was alright. She wasn't like she was okay. She wasn't like all that. Like, I didn't really care for her. I guess she was like one of Buckshot's artists. You know what I mean? Like, I guess he was trying to put on, but it just didn't work out because obviously they never came out with the album, so it's probably a good thing. Track 5, Trapped, produced by DJ Action. Like I said, special ed DJ and his producer as well. Pretty cool, pretty dope track. Very dark. It has like a really dark vibe to it. I could see some like Helter Skelter being on that track. Like I could see that joint being on like maybe like on Helter Skelter would have been perfect on that beat, but Buckshot actually did his thing on that joint right there. Track 6, Take It to the Streets. That was okay. It wasn't too bad. It was whatever. I'll Be Damned. That was another okay track. Heavyweighters featuring Swan. Swan, I'm assuming is like a artist that was under Buckshot Shorty, but he never came out, you know, with anything. That was like probably the only time you heard from him. And FT, FT, dope underground MC, FT Standout, or AKA also known as Street Smarts. Excuse me. He came out with a single back in the 90s, back in like 96 called Metal Things. The remix is dope with Pharaoh Monster, shit like that. And in 97 he actually came out with a single called Don't Trust Anyone, which is an underground classic. Pretty dope track. That was produced by Just Blaze. And Just Blaze, his beats was a lot different than it is now. Back then he was using a lot of timpani drums and stuff like that. So but yeah, I actually like it. It's pretty dope. FT definitely stole the show because FT he's a fucking beast on the beats. I mean on the tracks. And he has a good ear for beats. So Glide With Me. Glide With Me was cool. That was a pretty cool track. Yeah, it was alright. Take Your Time. Let me see, Take Your Time. Yeah, featuring Swan. I like that track. I could see that being as a single. I could just picture like Buckshot like in Miami, like just on the speedboat with a bunch of girls just drinking champagne and stuff like that. When I hear that beat, that's what it reminds me of. I like that joint too. I'm surprised that wasn't a single. Track 11, Breath Control, which is actually my favorite track off the album, produced by Baby Paul. When I met Buckshot Shorty, 4.5 years ago at the 15-year anniversary, Duck Down 15th anniversary, I actually met him and I chopped it up with him. And I actually mentioned that song by Breath Control, and he even said himself that's like one of his favorite tracks too. That song definitely could have been on Warzone too. Track 12, Boom Bye Bye, featuring Top Dog of Original Gun Clappers. I didn't like that track at all. I could have done. I didn't like that track. Production, yeah, I didn't really care for that too much. Track 13, Feel It, featuring Sweet Melody or Melody, Swan, Tone Capone, and yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I really like that track a lot too. That was pretty cool. Dope posse cut. They all do their thing on that track. I think Half a Mil was on that joint too. Yeah, I think Half a Mil, but he wasn't credited for some reason. I don't. Yeah, let me double check. Yeah, he was on that track, but he wasn't credited, which I don't know why, but I don't know. It was weird. Maybe it was like I don't know. I guess like record label differences. I don't know, some shit like that. And the last track, Feel It, it was okay. Overall, man. My verdict of this album, it was not really a good album from Buckshot. A couple of reasons. With this album, I kind of felt like the subject matter, it was like too much of the same. It was too much of braggadocious tracks. I think by this time in Buckshot's career, I kind of felt like, you know, he doesn't have much to prove. Like, everybody knows he's a dope MC, but you know, it's just unfortunately he's underground. But he's comfortable in that realm. You know what I mean? And I could respect that. But I kind of wish like Buckshot at this time, like I wish this album was more like a concept album. I wish it was more like a conceptual album. I think it would have been a lot better for him. You know what I mean? Kind of show you guys like how you grew up and like his personal experience. I think this would have been a perfect album for that. But instead, you kind of got like more of the same, some more stuff that you would have heard on Black Moon's album, like the first two Black Moon albums, as well as the Digging in the Vaults album. Another problem was the production. I feel like the production, I guess Buckshot at the time was on a budget, you know what I mean? Like he just didn't have the bread to like hire other producers to make some of the beats. So he kept it in-house, and you could tell, you know what I'm saying? It just didn't really work for him. Some of the beats I felt like I said, didn't really complement Buckshot's stuff. Didn't really complement his style, in my opinion. I guess he was like, I don't want to say desperate, he was trying to gain that commercial appeal, just as based on some of the beats on the album. Some people might, I've heard people complain about Warzone, and it might apply to this album too, but like on some of the songs, he tried to use his old style, like from Enter the Stage, and I guess people were kind of turned off about that because, you know, it didn't really work for this album. And I could see that, you know, I could kind of see that, you know, I could see he tried to bring his old style to the new shit, but it doesn't work for him, you know what I mean? So, but then a lot of people complain that, you know, people want him to go back to his old style. So you can't really win, you know what I mean? So, some of the songs kind of felt like leftover songs that would have been on Warzone. Like I guess like what I see is like I guess these are songs that he would have tried to put on Warzone, but it didn't work for that album. So, and I'm kind of glad it didn't go on Warzone. Like songs like Ladies and Gentlemen, I could have saw on Warzone. Breath Control definitely could have been on Warzone. The rest wouldn't have been on Warzone. Like I couldn't see on Warzone, but definitely Breath Control and Ladies and Gentlemen could have been on Warzone. Just the vibe of those albums. The rest, I don't know. Like the production was a big part of the problem of the album. But sorry, that's my phone. But yeah, I believe this album was actually out of print, but it shouldn't be. But you could get it on the Duck Down Records. You could find it on Duck Down website. Shouldn't be too hard to find, but if you can find it, definitely pick it up to get it to be a completist of the Duck Down discography or the Buckshot discography. He definitely got a lot better over the years as far as album wise. You know, the stuff that he's done with with Knife Wonder, and then he did a collab album with I think M Phases. Forgot the name of the album, but I think it was called like Backpack Theory or some shit like that. I forgot the name of it, but that album was actually pretty good. And yeah, man, and that's pretty much it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that review. Stay tuned for more reviews. Peace.